Anyone has any doubt, you can ask. So before starting today's class, in last class, we finished the female oogenesis and the reproductive structures. Today, we will be finishing 2 topics. And yes, I wanted to tell you that from today onwards, your classes will be 2 hours each, okay, for biology, where time will be there for discussing questions, and it will go on a little faster mode because we have to cover certain things, because now your foundational base is there. You understand the foundations, how I teach, and also what kind of discussions are required. So I encourage all 3 of you to participate in discussions actively and come up with doubts now. Okay. So in today's class, we will be finishing parturition, lactation, and pregnancy. But before that, who will give me a brief recap of oogenesis? Just oogenesis and the structures that we did in the last class, the organ, the ducts and the glands. Starting from oogenesis. Who would like to volunteer? Otherwise, anyone would like to discuss? Minashi, can you speak?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Oogenesis means the formation of female reproductive cells.
Yes.
And in human females, the gametogenesis, that is oogenesis, starts at the embryonic stage. And
Yes.
the primordial germ cells, which is a haploid, undergoes mitosis and changes to oogonium.
Yes.
Oogonium, it divides mitotically and produce primary oocyte, and it gets arrested. And after reaching the puberty, the
primary oocyte enters the M1. You have to tell that it starts meiosis and then it gets arrested. Okay. It enters the M1 cycle but does not complete it. It gets arrested at prophase 1.
And then after reaching puberty, the primary oocyte divides into 2, the first polar body and the secondary oocyte. The polar
Yes.
body degenerates, and the secondary oocyte divides into 2, the second polar body and the fully matured ovum. Then the primary oocyte have protective layers called primary follicle, and the primary follicles are layers called secondary follicle, then secondary follicle to tertiary follicle. Then the uterine tube, fallopian tube, it is a layered structure, and it has 3 parts. Infundibulum, which is a funnel-shaped portion. Then the widest and longest portion called ampulla. Then the short, narrow, and thick walled portions that connect the oviduct and the uterus, called isthmus. Then there is a finger-like projections called fimbriae that collect the ovum. And ampulla and isthmus is the site of fertilization. And
yes, ampulla isthmus junction is the site. Okay, not both.
Ampulla isthmus.
Yes.
Then uterus, it has 3 parts. The dome-shaped portion called fundus. Then the central portion is called body. Then the inferior narrow portion called cervix, and it opens into vagina. And the uterus wall have 3 layers: the endometrium, which is the inner layer, then perimetrium, the outer layer, and the myometrium, the middle layer.
Yes.
Vagina, it is a tube-like muscular structure, and its function is to form birth canal with cervix, then a receptacle for penis during copulation, then it is outlet for menstrual flow. Then hymen, it is a thin fold of vascularized mucus, and sometimes
it's a mucous membrane. It is a membrane basically, but it contains both mucus and some blood vessels. Yes. Yes, continue.
Then sometimes the hymen covers the vaginal opening completely, and this condition is called imperforate hymen.
Imperforate. See, perforations means holes or spaces between, right? For example, sponge has lots of perforations in it. Do you understand? Imperforations means no opening. Yes. Continue.
And it blocks the menstrual flow, and it can be surgically removed, surgically opened.
Yes, and then I ask you to go and revise the whole reproductive part from NCERT, the female reproductive part from NCERT. Did you do that? All of you?
Yes.
Yes. So, and no doubts. So let me begin with this part in today's class. So it is the end part of chapter 3 only, but I will, while I'll finish this part, I will include or I will bring some foundational parts from chapter 4, which is reproductive health. So reproductive health as a chapter is all about whatever we have studied about male reproductive system and female reproductive system and everything associated with hormonal changes or structural changes or puberty related secondary sexual characters. Then disorders or diseases in that whole system can affect the reproductive health. Like it can affect both the physiology, it can also affect the process of reproduction and can make humans infertile or unable to produce offsprings. So we will discuss all that things, but the foundation will be laid here. So in this class, I will be talking about fertilization. You all are aware of, right? What is fertilization? But certain, yes, let's quickly come up with that. Yes, Mamuna, please.
Fusion of male and female gamete is called.
Yes, so fusion of, now you can name the male and female gametes because we are studying it in context of humans. So fusion of spermatozoa, right, with ovum is called fertilization. Now this process is called fertilization. Now there is one more term in your book, which is called syngamy, associated with the process of fertilization. Anyone know what is syngamy? Have you studied this term, syngamy? What is syngamy?
Yeah, it's the same as of the fertilization. It's the
Then,
second term for fertilization.
yes, but then what is the difference? Why are there two terms? See, if there are two terms anywhere, either they are, so is this interchangeable? Can I use syngamy for fertilization everywhere?
Yes.
No. Okay. So syngamy is, as the word suggests, fertilization includes, it starts from, it also includes the passage of sperms in that fallopian tube where it reaches the ampulla isthmus junction and interacts with the ovum. And I already told you that an ovum is very big as compared to a sperm. So this is not to scale, but just to know that ovum has a protective lining, right, around itself. What do we call this lining as? So this is ovum. It must be having its own nucleus. So this is the nucleus of ovum. Sorry. Yes, this is the nucleus. What is this layer? Now this is the membrane, right? This is the membrane, also known as the plasma membrane of this cell. But what is this layer around the ovum? Any idea? This is in NCERT. Yes, Mamuna, you're saying something?
Yeah, it is, I guess, zona pellucida.
Yes, it's called zona pellucida. Now, it's a protective covering, which actually, I told you that ovum is not motile on its own, right? It cannot move on its own. So have you ever wondered that when it is in the ovary, so in the ovary, it is moved like from primary follicle to secondary follicle, right? We did that in the last class, remember? So it is in a cycle, then it is released. After it is released, how does it move inside the tube, fallopian tube? Any idea? Because sperms are motile, they are just doing whiplash movement and going wherever they want. But how is an ovum moving? Any idea? This cannot generate motion on its own, yes or no? Quickly.
Yes.
So how do you think it's moving? in that lining of female reproductive system, there are fine finger-like projections, like hair-like structures, which keep pushing this ovum. So if you imagine a tube, the inside of the tube has structures like the similar kind of structures that you have studied in digestive system. Remember, villi, finger-like projections to increase the surface area, but there they are not helping in the motion, right? As such, here these finger-like projections coming from the wall actually push, so they can move in a oriented manner like cilia. They can move, and the kind of motion they are doing, so it helps the cell which is in contact, it pushes it forward. So all these finger-like projections push this ovum towards, from infundibulum towards up towards ampulla, and then towards the isthmus, and then finally reaching, after fertilization, the zygote reaches the uterus and gets implanted there. So it's like tossing. So this ovum is being tossed, right?
Sir, is it that fimbriae which pushes it?
No, fimbriae is the finger-like projection at the end, like it's funnel. So it's collecting. They are very big. So they are bigger than what structures I am talking about. So it's like bristles of the toothbrush. So if you put something on the bristle, you can, like, if you imagine that, suppose this is a brush. So there are bristles, right? These are the bristles, okay? In a toothbrush. Let's imagine. If I put something here and then create a wave-like motion in these bristles from the side, this thing will start moving, right?
Yes.
Can you imagine it now, what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
A similar kind of motion happens for ovum. So it's constantly getting like tossed from one bristle to another and to another, and then it's moving ahead. So it is more prone to getting damaged. So that's why this layer is a very protective layer called zona pellucida, and it protects the ovum, the cell inside, and the nucleus. Now the problem is also when sperm encounters the ovum. Now sperms are very, very small as compared to ovum. Remember I told you that sperms are microgametes, right?
Yes.
We are heterogametic. So sperms are called microgametes and ovums are macrogamete or megagamete. And humans are heterogametic. So when this microgamete encounters this megagamete, the ovum, it first have to find its way through zona pellucida, right? Because zona pellucida also is a significant barrier for the sperm. And there comes the role of hydrolytic enzymes which are present in acrosome. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So this whole process of interaction of sperm with the ovum, this whole process till fusion and making zygote is called fertilization. Syngamy is a specific event of fertilization. The same kind of a difference which is there in, like, say, in plants. In second chapter we studied that plants, when pollen lands on the pistil, first it has a pollen pistil interaction, right? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Then it goes all the way down through extending the pollen tube, and then enters the embryo sac and fuses with the egg cell. One male nucleus fuses with the egg cell, the other male nucleus fuses with the polar nuclei. So if we talk about the fusion, that fusion is that very specific part of that whole process, right? Similarly, syngamy is the fusion of male nucleus with the female nucleus, which happens. So when this enters inside, when this successfully enters inside, this is the male nucleus, which keeps moving towards, and when it goes here, both male and female nucleus actually fuse together. Do you understand? This specific fusion of the nucleus, which is happening inside the ovum, is called syngamy. Is it clear?
Yes.
So write down. The syngamy is the fusion of the male and female nucleus. Syngamy is the fusion of male and female nucleus inside the ovum during the process of fertilization. During the process of fertilization. Okay, male and female. So do you understand? Its interaction will also come in the, so that whole process is fertilization, where it's interacting, hydrolytic enzymes are destroying zona pellucida, it's going inside, the male nucleus is traveling towards the female nucleus. Then the moment they fuse together, that part, that specific step is called syngamy. So do you understand, Mamuna, why it cannot be used everywhere with the same context?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, so this is fertilization. And what is the site of fertilization? Yes. Site of fertilization is isthmus ampulla junction or ampulla isthmus junction, depends on from which direction you are saying it. Isthmus ampulla junction. Okay. What happens after fertilization? Keep noting these things. So I told you this happened. What is syngamy is also clear to you. What happens after fertilization? Yes, syngamy has happened. The two nucleus have fused. Now the cell which was haploid is now diploid. And from that moment onwards, it will be called a zygote, right?
Yes.
Now what happens to the zygote?
It will move towards the wall of the uterus.
Yes, and when it is moving, so write down, after fertilization, zygote starts dividing, right? And also moves towards the uterus. Now, again, this movement which is towards the uterus is also facilitated by the inner structure of the tube, the fallopian tube. Okay. When it reaches the uterus, then what happens? Implantation. Okay. So write down this word, implantation. Implantation. Write down. Implantation is the process of embedding of the developing embryo. Embedding of the developing embryo in the walls of uterus, in the endometrium, inner wall, in the endometrium. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's draw this schematically. So this is, I should make it closer, actually. It's very far away. So this process is fertilization, right? First process. Then inside, there is one nucleus. Now then inside, there are two copies of the genome. So this is called a zygote. This is N, this is N, this is 2N. Then it becomes, from one cell, it becomes two cells, right? Two cells divide, which each a nucleus. What is this called? What is the third one called? Fertilization, zygote. Third one is called? So what is happening now? Basically, what is happening? What are we doing to the cells? They are dividing, right?
Yes.
So there is a series in which this division happens. So from one, when it becomes two celled from one cell, write down. a zygote starts dividing and form multicellular structure, whether it's 2 or from 2 there is 4. But what is one thing that you see is common here? You will see that till some point, like this is 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Till some point, like 2 cell, 4 cell, 8 cell, and so on. Do you realize here that the size remains the same? Okay. The overall size of the ovum does not increase. It stays the same. So one cell is the biggest cell. Like zygote is the biggest cell, or egg cell is the biggest cell that is possible in any animal system. Is it clear? So if the question comes, which is the biggest cell during the development of a human, which is the biggest cell? Egg cell. Egg cell is the biggest cell in our body. And if egg cell is not in the option, then it is zygote. A single celled zygote is the biggest cell. Okay. After that, when it becomes 2, then the 2 cells are smaller than the egg cell or the zygote. Both are half. So this outer boundary stays same, and this kind of division which happens during early embryogenesis is called reductional division. Reductional cell division.
Sir, then when the stage is called this blastocyst stage?
Yes, I'm coming to that. So basically, after the 8 cell stage, so after the 2 cell stage, when it becomes multicellular, a blastocyst comes when layers start forming. So what happens here is, in the beginning, it's just like a mass of cells. So they are just dividing. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, then 8 becomes 16. They're all just a ball of cells. Do you understand? But humans are not ball of cells, right? We have layers, and specifically we have layers like endoderm, ectoderm, mesoderm, right? From which organs are formed. These 3 layers we have studied about in class 11th, right? Germinal layers. And even in junior classes, have you studied about germinal layers, endoderm, mesoderm, body wall? And you have studied about something called body cavity, pseudocoelomate, coelom. Anything is clicking to you or not? Class 11th, classification of animals chapter. How are animals classified?
This is slightly.
Yes. So you have studied that there are 3 layers called endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. Mesoderm is the latest layer that developed. Some organisms do have a true mesoderm, which means they have true body cavity, which means they are called coelomate. Like humans are coelomates. Some are called pseudocoelomates, like your roundworms, Eskelminthes are pseudocoelomates. Then there are acoelomates, flatworms, Platyhelminthes. All these things you need revision, right? Minashi, Mamun, and Mazia. No remembrance? Okay, no problem. So after it, just remember that after it is a ball of cells, please go back and revise these things because they are very important. They always connect everywhere in biology. So that ball of cells starts making a pattern, and that pattern, when the pattern starts arising, that is called a blastocyst. Blastocyst has a cavity, a fluid filled cavity. So from 1 to 2 cell stage, it's called embryo. And then when it is 8 cell stage, this stage onward, it's called morula. Okay, morula is multicellular, but still with no pattern. It is a ball of cells. Is it clear, everyone? Say yes or no? And then after some time, the cells starts arranging in a pattern. So this is the developing embryo. And in this embryo, there will be a pattern which you will see. So there will be cell at the periphery. And then there will be a cell mass, which I will denote with a different color at one side of the embryo. So can you see the embryo now is getting a pattern? It is not a ball of a lump of cell anymore. And here you will see that there is a cavity. Now, when this stage comes, this stage is called a blastocyst. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
And this blastocyst implants in endometrium. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so write down the dividing embryo forms multicellular daughter cells, and each of these cells which are multiple cells are called blastomeres. Okay, in a blastocyst also blastomeres are called blastocells. Blastomeres. And an embryo, blastomeres is clear to you? Like this is a blastomere. It has 4 blastomeres. It has 2 blastomere. Is it clear?
Yes.
And write down an embryo with around 8 to 16 blastomere, either the transition state or 16. So an embryo with 8 to 16 blastomeres is called morula. So morula is an advanced early embryo. It's early, but in early also it has committed to become a fetus and develop. Write down. After forming a morula, it moves towards the endometrium and gets embedded as a blastocyst. Now, in a blastocyst, which I have made here, they sometimes asks you to label. So these things are asked. So this is the cavity. This is the outer layer, which is called trophoblast. Okay. So the ring, the outer cell layer is called trophoblast. Is it clear? The black cells that I have made here, right?
Yes.
And this lump of cells, which is there, is called inner cell mass. Okay. Clear, everyone? Morula and
Yes.
blastocyst, it's also known as blastula. You will also find one more word called blastula. Just like morula, this is a hollow. So you can write down a blastula. Write down next point. A blastula is a hollow sphere of cells produced during early embryogenesis. And this cavity is also sometimes asked. I don't know if this labeling are in NCERT or not, but you should just know it. It's called blastocele. Okay. Cavity is blastocele. The outer the layer is called trophoblast, and there is inner cell mass, and it's blastocyst or blastula, which gets implanted in the endometrium. Is this process clear? And all of this is happening like if we draw a, so if this is a tube, okay, and this is the wall where it will get implanted. So it starts, fertilization starts somewhere here, right? And as we go from here, you will find the second stage, third stage, and by the time morula is formed, it's already here inside. And when it becomes blastula, it implants here. So when it is moving through the fallopian tube and completing its journey to come into the uterus, to the endometrium, it is also dividing rapidly. Is it clear? Everyone?
Yes.
Any doubt in this concept?
No.
Okay. Now, fertilization. After fertilization, what happens? So implantation ensures pregnancy, isn't it? So once implantation has happened, which means, now try to recall from the last class and the class before that. Remember what happens just after pregnancy implantation happens? What is produced? HCG. Remember HCG? What was HCG? Yes, Minashi, please.
Human chorionic.
Yes, human chorionic gonadotropin. And what does it do? Where does it go? It goes and signals the corpus luteum to stay and not get degenerated, not become corpus albicans, right? And keep producing progesterone to maintain the pregnancy. Correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. And then placenta is formed. After implantation, the first thing that is formed is the junction between the developing embryo and the female body. That placenta acts as a barrier. So let's start pregnancy. Write down pregnancy and embryonic development. Pregnancy is embryonic development, basically. So write down. First thing that happens, so after pregnancy is write down. After pregnancy, sorry, after implantation, pregnancy is the process, event is implantation. After implantation, so do you see this trophoblast now? I will make, so let's say these are trophoblasts, okay? These are the cells of the trophoblast, the outer layer. Can you see everyone, the cells? Yes?
Yes.
So this is the trophoblast layer. These are the cells. So these cells starts producing structure like this, like invaginating structure. These are called, what do they resemble like? They're coming out of the cell only. What do they resemble like? Have you studied this thing in your digestive system as well? Villi. Remember villi?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. What do villi do? What does villi do? In digestive system, they increase the surface area of absorption for nutrition, right? When food is moving through it. So these structures which starts developing towards the outer side. So here it is the trophocele and the inner mass, right? Here it is the cavity and then the inner mass. You can understand this by the curve, right? The curve is like this. So this is called chorionic villi. Okay, so write down the cells of the trophoblast after implantation produce chorionic villi. So this thing which is coming out like a projection. So let's see. So this is a trophoblast. Look at my fist. This is a trophoblast. After implantation, it starts forming finger-like projections out. Okay. Do you see this? Everyone?
Yes.
And what is present around the trophoblast when it is embedded in the uterine wall? The tissues and the muscles of the uterus, right? It was like this earlier. So it went and embedded inside. After embedding, it starts producing finger-like projections inside. And then the tissues which are around of the uterus, they also starts producing structures like this. And there is a interlocking that happens between the embryo and the tissues of the uterus. Do you understand? This is called interdigital lock. These are called digits. We have 5 digits are fingers, 5 digits. Okay. And they form an interlocking pattern. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
So write down. The chorionic villi forms a jointed interdigit pattern, with the uterine tissue, to give rise to placenta. Is it clear? So this will grow and there will be tissues from uterus also. They will form locks like this. Do you understand, everyone? And
Yes.
as a result, there will be a disc-like thing formed. And all of this is forming in the endometrium, in the blood, in the inner layer of the uterus only. So this and this together forms a layer. So this is an interlocking layer which over time grows and becomes thick. Okay. And this part now becomes placenta. Is it clear? So it has blood vessels from both the sides coming in very close contact, but they never fuse. The blood vessels do not fuse and become one. They are very close. And what happens when there is a very thin membrane in between and 2 fluids are on each side? Then what happens? Something like this. Remember you studied in kidneys, glomerulus, Bowman's capsule.
Yes.
Yes. So from where, like, these are very closely associated, and then what happens between these 2 kind of blood vessels? Exchange, diffusion of substances on the basis of concentration. Waste and nutrients can get transferred without coming into actual contact. Is it clear? Remember? Yes. So the same thing happens in placenta. The mother's blood never comes in contact with the baby's blood. So I already told you that it is a myth that we think that we are born out of blood from our mother. We develop the blood on our own. We develop our own blood. We do not develop from mother's blood. Mother's blood never reaches in our body. And that is one proof for that is it is possible that a mother with some other blood group can have a baby with some other blood group. Yes? It happens or it does not happen? Do we always have the same blood group as our mothers?
No, not always.
Not always. So how is it possible? If our body and the blood which is running in our veins, if it is coming from the mother, then our blood group should be same, no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes,
So
but
it is same also, right?
sorry, what, Mamuna?
The blood can be same, like the blood group can be same.
Yes,
also.
the blood group can be same also, but that is decided by genetics, not because the mother's blood came in our body. That's why we inherited the blood directly. You remember blood grouping ABO?
Yes.
This blood group. So if mother gave you a gene of A and father also gave you a gene of A, then your blood group will be A. If mother gave you a gene of A and father gave you a gene of B, then you will be AB. So in this case, you see mother was A, but baby is AB. So if mother's blood directly came and formed the baby, then where did B came from? So that's why we never come in contact with our mother's blood. It's a myth that we are formed from the mother's blood. The blood in our system is formed from like on its own. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
So the placenta never, it only allows exchange of waste from our body to our mother's blood, because we cannot, we are not doing any sort of excretion, like our excretory system or our digestive system or our respiratory breathing is not happening when we are inside the womb, right? We are not breathing out carbon dioxide. We are not urinating. We are not defecating. So where is all the waste going? It is from our body, it is going into the umbilical cord, and through the placenta, it is going into mother's blood through diffusion. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, and then mother's blood will just excrete it out through her kidneys, or she will excrete all the CO2 out through her lungs. So when a woman is pregnant, she's not only doing excretion or nutrition, she's not only taking care of nutritional and excretory needs of herself, but also of the baby which is developing inside. So a sperm in a female tract is like a foreign body. It's like a antigen. Female body will not treat the sperm when it enters into the vaginal tract. It goes all the way through the birth canal into the uterus, then into the fallopian tube. The female body tries to kill that particle because it's a foreign particle. It does not recognizes that particle. Yes or no? Whenever anything comes in our blood, in our body, our immune cells try to kill it, right?
Yes.
Same thing happens with sperms. That's why we need millions and millions of sperms so that at least one can reach and fertilize. And fertilization is a chance event. Not every copulation results in fertilization. Okay, so it's a chance event. Just by putting sperms in a female tract does not ensure fertilization. So if I ask you, which event is a sure shot in surety of fertilization has happened, then it is Syngamy. Okay.
Okay.
If Syngamy has happened, zygote is formed. Very good. Now write down the next thing. The placenta, functions of placenta. Write down what are the functions of placenta. The placenta mediates the supply of gases like oxygen and CO2, mediates the supply of gases from the mother's blood into the fetus, into the embryo. From the mother's blood into the embryo. Done? Let me know when you're done. So O2 will be, the direction of O2 will be from mother's blood into the fetus or the developing embryo, and the direction of CO2 will be from the fetus into the mother's blood, correct?
Yes.
So you can just write down about the direction. From sorry. And CO2 between fetus and mother. So I was telling you that a sperm is like a foreign particle, okay, a pathogen in female's body. Then what a developing embryo is like? Isn't it like a parasite, an endoparasite? What do endoparasites do? What are parasites? Mamuna? Mamuna. What are parasites? Any idea? Minashi? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, I'm actually not sure, but it's like
Yes.
something which stays on the host and something decaying happens and something like that.
There are two kinds of parasites. One are called ectoparasites, like lice. Lice, which people get in their scalp and hair, right? It's like an
Yes.
ectoparasite that stays outside the surface and draws nutrition from the blood. So it's sucking blood like a leech. Leech is an ectoparasite. Okay. There are endoparasites like tapeworm. Tapeworm is inside our intestines, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
And that is an endo. It is inside the body, deriving the nutrition from inside. It gets shelter, protection, nutrition, everything. And we are taking care of it. So it's like a burden on our system. It is taking food from our system. It's taking shelter in us. And we have to do hard, like a part of our nutrition goes to the parasite. So a developing baby inside a mother's womb is also, it acts like an endoparasite where it's deriving nutrition, shelter, and also excreting its waste in the mother's system. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes. So we should be thankful to our mothers that they carried us like a parasite for 9 months and gave us life. So this class is dedicated to all the mothers who who took care of us, the parasites.
Sir, sometimes like the pregnant women are told not to eat some specific food. Like,
Yes.
why is that
Yes.
reason?
With those specific foods, I'll tell you, there are two reasons. One reason is it can affect the pregnancy. For example, there are certain chemicals present in edible things like you will always hear that female in early pregnancy during the first trimester, it's advised not to eat papaya, right? You should not eat lots of female pregnant women should not eat certain fruits or certain edible substances which has certain chemicals that can cause miscarriage or discontinuation or termination of pregnancy. Okay, it can cause the uterine tissues to contract prematurely, and because of that a premature miscarriage can happen. So one reason is it can affect your pregnancy. Another reason is even if it will not affect the pregnancy, it can cross placenta and get into the developing baby's system. For example, certain drugs. Pregnant women should also avoid alcohol and smoking because the active ingredients in these drugs can cross placenta and go into the baby's body where they can cause problems during the developmental time frame. So a lot of organs are developing, structures are developing, bones, blood vessels, all these things are developing. So they can cause disorders and defects. They can cause mental retardation where the brain does not develop properly, or they can cause some organ to not develop properly or things like that. So the reason for which women are restricted from eating certain things are two. It can directly cause miscarriage, which can discontinuation of pregnancy, or can cause problem to the developing baby. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
And sir,
They are also, yes, Mamuna.
And also the babies, like sometimes in some cases, the baby can stay more than 9 months.
Yes, the baby can also stay less than 9 months, right? That's called premature birth. So baby should not stay more than 9 months. The point is, if the pregnancy, the delivery is not happening after 9 months, then there is some problem with the parturition, like there is some problem with the actual delivery process, like contractions of uterus, or the cues which comes from oxytocin and relaxin. We will study about all of those hormones are not coming properly. So in that case, the easiest thing they can do is, if you know that it's been 9 months and the delivery is being delayed, you can just do a cesarean C-sec and take out the baby, because you know that the baby is developed inside, right? But in case of premature deliveries, that becomes a major problem where baby is not properly developed, but still delivery takes place and the baby is expelled out of the uterus. There the baby needs proper care, intensive care in incubators. You must have seen in movies or something, they keep premature babies in incubators where basically the things that were not developed, the nutrition and things are provided from outside, and the baby is allowed to develop before it can be held like a normal baby. Yes. And that event, you also must have heard of the event called that female saying that my water broke. So there is a water breaking in pregnant females during the last months, right? In the last month, the water breaks and literally there is water coming out of the birth canal from the uterus. That is basically, remember I told you that the baby is inside a fluid cavity, which is called amniotic cavity, and there is amniotic fluid inside it. So baby is like in a polythene bag. You can clearly see the baby from outside, but it is inside that bag. When that bag bursts, the fluid comes down and now the baby also has to come down. That's called bursting of the water. Do you understand?
Yes.
In some very, there are interesting cases where if you are doing a C-sec, especially during a cesarean, so a cesarean section is called a C-sec. You cut open the uterus, the abdomen, the lower abdomen, and take the baby out. So that way the baby does not have to go through the birth canal. And that way you can save the female from lots and lots of pain that happens. Now, here also pain happens. No, it's not like that. There's no pain here. It's not painless. But the kind of pain that happens when the ligaments and the cartilage are breaking and the hip girdle is expanding and the baby is being pushed out, or in some very, very complicated cases where you will see, like we get to know through ultrasound, that the baby is not in a proper orientation to get out through a normal delivery, or the baby has the umbilical cord. Sometimes in the womb, the baby is also moving around, right? Changing positions, kicking hands and legs. And sometimes the umbilical cord gets around the neck of the baby. So that can choke the baby during the process of childbirth. So in that case, to avoid that, they make a C-sec and they take the baby out right from the uterus. In that case, you can see that sometimes you can take the baby out with its covering, like with the amniotic cavity fluid and the membrane. So it's like a balloon, and you see that the baby is inside that balloon in that fluid. So and unless and until you poke that, you burst that balloon, remove the membrane, the baby will not start crying or will not feel that it has taken birth. And that thing is called wheel birth. Go and try to search what is wheel birth on internet. Okay, you will see pictures where you will see that the baby is like in a bag kind of a structure. Any other questions, Memona?
Yes, so one more question.
Yes.
Some babies are also born, but they don't cry.
Yes. Why do babies need to cry? It's a very important thing. Why do babies need to cry? Why is crying very important?
Because maybe that shows that they're alive.
No, but even if they're breathing, they're alive, no? If they're alive, they're alive. The heart is beating, the blood is flowing in their body. They do not have to cry to tell that, okay, I am alive. Mazia is writing an interesting point. Oxygen to brain. How, Mazia? Oxygen to brain was always there. Like oxygen was being transferred from mother to the baby. Mazia is writing they inhale. So what happens? Yes, you are going to the right path. Why do they cry? Why babies cry? And why it is important for them to cry when they're born? Because before birth, were they breathing? Were they inhaling and exhaling?
No.
No. So how were they getting oxygen and CO2? From placenta, dissolved in blood. So mother's blood was bringing oxygen right till the door, and then telling the membrane, the membrane which is in the middle. So on one side, sorry. So if this is the placenta, on one side is the baby's blood and on the other side is the mother's blood, right? So things can just get exchanged without exchanging the blood, like gases. So this is how oxygen is reaching baby's brain and every organ till the time it is inside the womb. After it is outside the womb, the moment you break that membrane and it comes out of the amniotic fluid, it has to, it is out of the fluid now, right? It is not in water. So what happens for the first time, air rushes in the lungs of the baby. So for the first time, the baby inhales air. And when it does that for the first time, the lungs actually swell for the very first time in the life. And when they swell, the alveoli, when they are filled with air, the muscles around get stretched, and that causes a sensation of pain for the very first time. It's slightly painful to breathe for the first time. Now, when we are breathing, we are in habit because this is what our lungs do, right? But imagine breathing for the first time and certain muscles contracting and relaxing for the first time. That makes a baby cry. Do you understand? Is it clear?
Yes.
So first breath is painful. So is the last. Ironical, no?
Yeah.
Yes. This is how we come to the world. And the first thing when we come to the world that we feel is pain. And probably the last thing that we feel when we go from the world is also pain, because we are dying. We are dying because of some reason, right? Okay, good. Any other questions, Mamuna? Good questions. I see that you are very enthusiastic for the topic, right?
Yeah, and sir, one last question.
Yes.
Not
to be last. Don't worry. Yes, keep asking.
Yeah.
Tell me.
So, like for example, if a woman is in her bleeding
Sorry,
phase, can she even get pregnant at that
I
time?
lost you in between, Mamuna. Woman is in, and then I lost you.
In the bleeding phase, like a menstrual phase.
Okay.
So can she even get pregnant at that time?
It's highly unlikely. It's not. I'll not say it's impossible, because there are many scenarios that can make it possible. For example, probably because of some problem, the second ovary also ovulated at the same time. But even if fertilization happens, the female cannot get pregnant. You understand why? Because everything is falling apart, and it keeps falling apart for the rest 5 days. So if you are saying that on day 1 of the bleeding, let's start with the day 1. On day 1 of the bleeding, as a sperm entered into the vagina somehow, going through all that. So when the bleeding is happening, the flow is outside, right? Somehow, let's imagine. So first thing which makes it more unlikely and nearly impossible is that lot of outflow of blood is there. So it will be very difficult for the sperm to wade through that blood and tissue and all that thing which is coming out and reach the uterus, right? Let's imagine it did that somehow. It also reached the ampulla isthmus junction. Let's assume somehow. It also found an ovum there. Okay. It also fertilized the ovum. Now it has to come back to uterus to get implanted.
Yes.
But there is no endometrium. Where will it get implanted? So ultimately that will also flow out, right? Because there's nothing to hold it. So it cannot, a female cannot get pregnant during the bleeding phase. Okay. You understood the concept?
Yes.
In biology, we do not talk in absolutes. We do not say this is possible, this is impossible. Nothing in biology is impossible, because life finds a way. Always. If you say that if we do this, it is impossible for the bacteria to survive. If we put antibiotic, the bacteria will surely die. The bacteria after 50 years develops resistance. Now it is not dying with the same drug. Then you have to find some other way. So you understand, it's ever evolving a system. So the word impossible is not in the dictionary of biology, unless and until you are saying something very, very extraordinary. For example, if I send a human into the water, it will start breathing there. Yes, that is impossible for one human. But if humans decided to go underwater, that, generation after generation, you never know, you can develop gills or something like that. Science fantasy or science fiction is just science of the future. It's not impossible things. Simply, if 300 years from now, 300 years ago, if someone would have told you that, one day you will be able to edit genes, you will be able to choose an eye color for your baby, and that could have been done, would you believe it? That I can choose what eye color my baby will have? Will you believe it?
I guess no, but I think it happens.
It now happens. Yes.
Yeah,
now it's a possibility. 300 years before, in past, if someone would have said that, no one would have believed that person, right? But gene editing is a technique. Though it's not allowed, it's not legal to do gene editing on humans, but we do it for animals all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Where do you think all these very cute little pocket cats and very cute little puppies from all different breeds have come from? Have you ever found a pocket cat in a jungle?
No.
Do you think a pocket cat so fragile, which cannot survive even in our home if we don't take care of it, Can it survive in the wild? Do you think Chihuahua or like these small, very cute dogs, fluffy hairball dogs, will they survive in the wild? No, they're all breeds that we have developed. Sometimes by artificially breeding through the different varieties, or sometimes through gene editing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions, Mamuna, for now, or shall I move forward?
No, no. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So functions of placenta. First is to ensure an exchange of O2 and CO2 between fetus and mother. Write down next. The placenta is connected to the embryo. The placenta is connected to the embryo through umbilical cord. Through umbilical cord. Connected now. What is umbilical cord? Is it mother's structure or is it baby's structure? Or is it shared between the two? This is a question.
I think it's mother's.
No, it's solely baby's structure. It is not mother's, it is not shared. See, because clearly it is after the placenta. So if towards this side is the mother's system and towards this side is the baby, then placenta develops towards this side, right? It goes from our navel. So there is a navel button, which we call the navel, the belly button. From our navel, it goes and connects to the placenta. Okay, so this is umbilical cord and this is where the baby is. Okay, so this is, let's say, I'm deleting this wheelbarrow thing. You just figure it out for your interest. So this is an embryo. This is a umbilical cord. And then comes placenta and then mother's system. Is it clear? So umbilical cord is solely a baby's tissue, the neonatal's tissue. Do you understand, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, it's not shared. Okay, Mazia, do you understand why it's not shared? What is shared? The placenta has two layers, one of the mother's, one of the baby. That is the only shared part. Nothing after placenta towards the baby is shared. Okay.
Then, sir, we also, like, people normally tell that if there is a relation between your mother and the child, they tell that because you were attached to the umbilical cord, so that's why there's a relation. That's what people tell.
Like, let me understand your question properly. You're saying relation in the sense that if I take up, like, if I take tissues from the placenta, I can tell the mother, like that kind of a relation.
No, what I mean is, like, if people ask that what is the relation between your mother and yourself, so
yes, right.
Yeah.
You mean to say what is the connection? So the umbilical cord is the connection between the mother and the baby, that cord. But that cord, let's see here again, that cord develops from the placenta, right? Placenta is a disc-like tissue. It looks like a disc. It exactly looks like this. Let me draw it here for you. So it's like a discoid tissue where from the center emerges the umbilical cord. Can you understand what I'm drawing here?
Yes.
So this tissue is embedded in the uterus. So half part on the other side is actually the uterine tissue, which used to be the uterine tissue, and where this interdigitation was formed. And this part was placenta. And umbilical cord comes purely after placenta, right? So if I cut umbilical cord from end to end, it still does not touches the mother, right? It only touches the placenta and the baby. But yes, it is a functional connection between us and the mother, because everything that comes into our system when we are inside the womb comes through umbilical cord, and everything that goes out of our system into the mother system goes through umbilical cord. So it's like a telephone wire for communication and for exchange of products. but it is not a mother's part. It is our part. And there is something that normal people now are interested in doing, and it's suggested that you can keep your placenta conserved. Every baby's placenta can be conserved. There are something called umbilical cord can be conserved, not placenta. Umbilical cord bank, because these umbilical cords are the contains stem cells for us, our body stem cells, like, because this is also a part of our body, no? When we are inside our mother, this is a part of us, yes or no?
Yes.
When we come out, the doctor put clips on the both hands and then cut the placenta, and over the time the placenta degenerates and leaves a hole like thing in our belly, which is called the navel, and from the mother's body everything comes out after delivery, and that's thrown away. But if you conserve the umbilical cord of your baby, it might be helpful in many diseases, genetic disorders and therapies which the baby might suffer in the future. So there's something called the umbilical cord bank or the placental tissue bank. But it's one thing I just wanted to tell you. So it has lots of stem cells of ours. Okay, Maimuna?
Yes.
Yes, now write down. Placenta, in the functions of placenta. Placenta, remember, placenta also acts as an endocrine tissue. Placenta keeps the pregnancy going. It sustains the pregnancy for 9 months. So till placenta is in the mother's body, the pregnancy will stay. So write down, placenta acts as a endocrine tissue. What do we mean by endocrine and exocrine? Just I thought quickly to ask you. Minashi, Maimuna, Mazia? What is the difference between endocrine tissue and exocrine tissue? Endo and exo. Crine means secretion. Endo means?
It secretes without the ducts, I guess.
Yes. Endo means wherever it is secreting in endo, there only in the system. So it will secrete whatever it is secreting in the blood, because it does not have its own duct to carry the secretions wherever it wants. So can you give me one example of an exocrine gland, a gland with a duct? Digestive system, remember studying pancreas, pancreatic enzymes, pancreatic duct, pepsin.
Yes.
Yes, right? What it is used to do? Pancreatic amylase, lipase. They used to be, so pancreas is a dual. It is both an endocrine gland and an exocrine gland. The exocrine part helps in digestion. The endocrine part secretes insulin and glucagon. Remember? Just quick brush ups.
Yes.
Salivary glands are also exocrine. They have ducts. So they are present in our parotids, in the cheek or submandibular, but they always secrete all of their production, which is saliva, in the buccal cavity through ducts. So if you will see very carefully, most of the salivation happens either from this region, like the jaw, or from below the tongue, sublingual. Saliva comes from there into the system. So there are ducts which move from salivary glands to the buccal cavity. Endocrine is which secretes hormones. Exocrine mostly secretes enzymes, and endocrine secretes hormones, which they put it in blood. So this tissue, placenta, write down, it acts as an endocrine tissue, and it secretes the following hormones. First hormone you all know, we have already studied it, which gives the first signal of pregnancy. Pregnancy test kits use this hormone. Sorry? I cannot hear you properly. The voice is muffled. Come again.
HCG.
HCG, yes. So write down HCG, which is human chorionic gonadotropin. This is called the pregnancy hormone and also used in pregnancy test kits. Second, so this tells that pregnancy has happened. This goes and gives us signals to corpus luteum about not getting degenerated when it was being formed from the embryo. And what else does the placenta secretes? It secretes HPL. HPL is human placental lactogen. Lactogen. What does lactogen do? Lactogen. This hormone, what do you understand by the word lactation? Lactation. It is one of the topics, lactation. What is lactation? After pregnancy, the female mammary gland starts producing milk in the gland. It becomes active and starts producing milk. So we'll study about the mammary gland after this. And HPL acts there, okay? Is it clear?
Yes.
It promotes lactation in a pregnant female. It's basically making the body of the female ready for the baby. So till it is inside the womb, the placenta is taking care of things. But what when it will come outside? Then the mothers have to feed the baby with the milk. And what is the human milk known as? Remember the name?
Colostrum.
Colostrum. Yes. It's thick yellow fluid. Third hormone, that placenta, all these are secreted by placenta. So write down third hormone which released is called estrogen. This you already know, right? Estrogen. And the fourth is, of course, progesterone. They always come in pair. So you know what is estrogen and what is progesterone?
Yes.
Yes. So their functions need not to be told. And then the fifth one is called relaxin. What does the name tells you? Relaxin.
Relaxes the contractions.
Yes, yes. Relaxin helps in like uterine contractions, and when the uterus and when the female during the childbirth is in pain, this hormone helps. Okay, the female, and this is secreted right on. Relaxin is secreted during later phases of the pregnancy, mostly in the third trimester, from month 7th to 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th. So relaxin, write down, is secreted in the later stages of pregnancy. In bracket, write down mostly around the third trimester. And sorry, oh, just one moment, one mistake. Don't write it with this, just write it separately because it's secreted by ovary. Okay, it's not a placental one. So write down relaxin is whatever you have written, keep it same and write down by the ovary, just add by the ovary. It's not a part of this cocktail. Relaxin along with, this is the next line. You have written the first line. Relaxin is produced during the later stages of pregnancy, mostly in the third trimester by the ovary. Okay. And relaxin along with HCG and HPL, these three things, relaxin, HCG and HPL, are only produced in a female during pregnancy. So these three hormones are exclusively produced during pregnancy and not anytime before or after. Okay. Remember, there was one hormone coming from pituitary known as prolactin. Class 11th, chemical control and coordination, a hormone secreted, prolactin. People, yes or no? What was the function of prolactin? Minashi. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What was the function of prolactin? Okay. I'm giving you a homework. You have to go back, open your class 11 textbook, write down the homework. There are certain hormones about which I want you to figure out what they do. Okay. As a part of your brush up homework. Prolactin, thyroxine, and this is your T3, T4, TSH. You have studied this in class 11th. So go and look for prolactin, thyroxine, and also you studied something called cortisols, remember? Secreted from adrenal cortex. Yes or no? Okay, you need to brush up quickly. I understood. So this, write down, you have to go and figure out the functions and which gland they are secreted from and what are their functions, what are their target organs for these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 3, 4 hormones, prolactin, thyroxine, cortisols. Why is this important for this chapter is because the levels of all these hormones during pregnancies goes up in a mother, in a pregnant women. Okay. And all of these, once you will come up with their functions, then we will discuss the logic that why do you now think that these levels are up in a pregnant female. Okay. Is it clear? Is the homework? Everyone has noted the homework? Yes. Okay. So now let's come to write down the germinal layers during embryogenesis. This is important. The germinal layers. Okay. For this, I would urge you to again go back to class 11 textbook, open it and get your concepts clear on coelomate organisms. Okay. Because write down, there are 3 layers, write down. The inner cell mass, remember inner cell mass and trophoblast in a blastocyst? The inner cell mass after implantation starts differentiating the inner cell mass after implantation starts differentiating into the following layers. The first one is called ectoderm. The word derm comes from dermis or the layer. What does the word ecto means? Ecto means quick. Amana. What happened? All of a sudden, everyone is silent. Lost your interest? We'll come back to childbirth. Don't worry. Mamana, what is ectoderm?
Maybe I'm not sure.
Okay, what does the word ecto means according to you? Biology, terminologies. Ecto means?
Outer.
Yes, perfect. Outermost. So this is the outermost layer that develops. So write down, it develops into ectoderm. First layer which is formed is an ectoderm, outer layer. So basically what happens is this cell mass that you are seeing, it is a blob of mass here. You see this mass, the cell, inner cell mass?
Yes.
These cells start making layers. So it's like it was like a bulge of cells. Then they start segregating into two layers, an ectoderm and an endoderm. So ectoderm is there and endoderm is formed. And these two layers are present in all organisms that form layers. So organisms are of two types. Again, class 11th, when you are brushing up coelomate, you also brush up this thing. Diploblastic and triploblastic. I think you remember this term, even if you do not know exactly what it means. Remember studying it in class 11th, diploblastic organisms and triploblastic. Many questions in your NEET, if you want to become a doctor, it comes from this chapter where you learned about animals and their different classifications. So what are diploblastic organisms? What are triploblastic? So diplo, the word di means
The two, there are two.
they have only two layers. And what are the two layers that they have? An outer ectoderm and an inner endoderm. So diploblastic organisms have only two layers, ectoderm, endoderm. Triploblastic have another additional layer which comes up later, though it is in the middle, but it develops the latest. So write down. A middle layer called mesoderm. A middle layer called mesoderm appears later between endoderm and ectoderm. So diploblastic have only these two. Triploblastic has also the third layer. And if they ask you which is the evolutionarily or according to developmental time frame, which is the last layer to develop, then what will you say?
Mesoderm.
Middle one. Okay, don't think that either it will be ecto or endo, it will be meso. Now write down together these three layers give rise to all the tissues and organs. Together, these three layers give rise to all the organs and tissues in a developing embryo. And then they ask you questions in entrances that from which layer which organ or system is formed. So I will tell you some basics, but you have to go and find more. So ectoderm, the most important ones I'm telling you. So just write down ectoderm give rise to nervous system. Okay, now nervous system are of two types, you know, right? CNS and PNS. Any idea what is CNS, what is PNS? Yes or no? This is central nervous system, neural control and coordination, chapter 11, class 11th.
Yes.
This is called central nervous system, and this is called
Peripheral.
Yes, perfect. Peripheral nervous system. Apart from this, nervous system, ectoderm also forms the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, all the neurons associated, everything. Okay, then comes your mesoderm and endoderm. Mesoderm, the things that have been asked, famous ones, are blood vascular system. Blood vascular system, which means all your arteries and veins, and also the cardiovascular system, which means the heart. Okay, All these are formed from mesoderm. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes.
And then come endoderm. Write down. Endoderm is always towards the innermost. So whatever organs have cavities, this is a trick to remember. Like, just 1 second. I lost the pen. Yes. Yes. So endoderm, remember, is the innermost layer. Yes. So mostly organs through which you can, like, a thing from outside can come and pass. For example, your stomach. If you see stomach, what is stomach? Stomach is just an organ, like the inner lining of it. Food can enter from the mouth from outside and can move through the stomach, right? Yes or no? Your intestines, right? So write down endoderm. Oh, I'm holding the pen. Endoderm gives rise to stomach, intestines, then the liver and pancreas associated with it. And what is another? So apart from food, what is another cavity from where things can go from outside and go into that organ?
Lungs.
Sorry, Minashi?
Lungs.
Yes, lungs. Okay. So these are the ones which are formed from endoderm. So just remember these for exam point of view. Okay. This part is clear?
Yes.
Okay. And then they ask you what structure have developed in a human during what time. So for that, you only need to study some specific organs and structures that develop during the embryonic development. For example, write down limbs, etc. So there are 3 trimesters, right? Remember, the pregnancy is divided into 3 trimesters, 3 months each. Okay. So in the first trimester, I will just dictate it, write down. During the first trimester, the embryo's heart is the first organ that develops and is noticeable. So heart develops within the first month of implantation. Is it clear? And if you want to go specifically, from the day of implantation, heartbeat can be heard from 22nd day onwards, like slightly more than 3 weeks. And you can actually, with a stethoscope, you can hear, apart from the mother's heartbeat, if you put the stethoscope at the uterus, like at the pregnant woman's abdomen, you will hear a feeble heartbeat from the embryo as well. So write down, heart develops in the first month. Then by the end of second month, you will see that the limbs, the hands and the legs, the structure, the embryo starts taking the shape of a human. Like you can say that this is a human embryo. It is looking more and more like a human. It develops limbs. So write down, by the end of second week, the limbs, appendages, whatever you call it, they starts forming. And before the first trimester ends, like before the first 3 months ends, write down, before the first trimester ends. Everyone is writing this down, Minashi, Mamun and Mazia?
Yes, sir.
Yes, because I'm just dictating it. Before the first trimester ends, all vital organs are formed. Of course, they are developing in the process. In the next 6 months, it's not like nothing happens. Everything is formed, but it is formed. It just keeps on developing. So all vital organs are formed by the end of first trimester. And when does the, you know that baby kicks in the womb? They show movement. Sometimes, you know, they do a fist bump or they kick. You can see their hands and legs, or you can see a pregnant woman's belly moving up. You know, mothers feel it when their baby's inside kicks or they are active, they feel it. So that happens around the end of second trimester. So around 5th and the 6th month. So write down, the baby starts showing movement inside the womb. The baby starts showing movement inside the womb around 5th, 6th month, the end of second trimester. The end of second trimester. Okay. And also the body shows growth of fine hairs. At the end of second trimester, after 6 months, there are fine hairs on the baby's scalps. Have you, anyone has seen a newly born baby? Anyone's younger sibling was born and you were able to see? Minashi, Mamuna, Mazia?
No, sir.
No, but do you know that like from any reference from, I don't know, from movies or something, that they're not completely bald. They have very fine hair on their scalp when they're born. You know, very fine hairs on their body. That develops at the end of second trimester. And also one more thing. So when we are inside the womb, we are the lids, so our eyelids, which we can open and close, it's not formed like that. It's like a layer, it's a covering. It's completely closed like a shutter. It starts opening, like it's like a layer like this on the eye. Then it starts breaking from between. And you know, here we start forming the, what do we call these? Eyelashes. And then we can open it like an eye. Do you understand? So this opening of eyelids happen also at the end of second trimester. Write down, eyelids open at the end of second trimester. These are some important things that have been asked. So I'm dictating you this. A lot of thousands of things happens, but everything is not asked. And then eyelids open, eyelashes are formed. And yeah, that's it. So even a baby, now do you understand that if a baby is delivered in the 7th month of pregnancy, we call it a premature baby, right? A premature delivery. Yes, Mamuna? Yes or no?
Yes.
We do call it a premature delivery, but that baby can still survive. Now you can understand why it can still survive, because almost everything which is vital for the sustenance of the embryo has been developed by the end of 6th month or 7th month, beginning of 7th month. So even if someone is delivered in 7th month or 8th month, they need some intensive care in the incubator, but after that they will grow normally. Is it clear? So premature babies are not, it's not like they miss some organs or they always will be deficit. They will not be developed properly. They will have some retardation or things like that. No, even muscle problem will not be there. It's just like everything vital is there in their body. They just came out a couple of months earlier from the womb. If they were inside the womb, they would have been developing with the help of nutrition. The same thing they can do in an incubator, in an artificially regulated environment. So they are also capable of developing and growing as a normal individual. Is it clear? Minashi, Mamuna, and Mazia?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I've already told you about, write down parturition. What is parturition and lactation? These are the last topics we will finish today. What is parturition? Any idea? Parturition. The exact event of delivering a child through a birth canal outside the female's body is called parturition. So write down. Okay, what is the, so you know for humans it is 9 months the pregnancy, but you may have to remember it for some other organisms as well that have been asked. You know which animals has the longest pregnancy?
Elephant.
Yes, and how long is it?
12 months.
Sorry?
12 months.
12. No, it's not the longest then. 9 months is in humans. And you see that an elephant baby can be developed in 12. In elephants, it is 22 months. Massive, no? Which means almost 2 months shy of 2 years. Yes? So elephant has to carry the baby and develop it inside its womb for almost around 2 years. That's why it is difficult. If elephant starts going extinct, it is difficult to rehabilitate their population, because even if there is a pregnancy happening, it's around 2 years, and there is no guarantee in wild that after 2 years that pregnancy will be successful. Sometimes babies are born with, like, they are stillbirths. You know what is a stillbirth? Stillbirth, what does it mean? A dead baby. A dead baby born. So what comes out of the uterus is already dead because of some issues, whatever issue. So it has the longest. Write down parturition. And parturition is also known as pregnancy or parturition. Sorry, pregnancy is also known as gestation period. Okay. So if I say the pregnancy for humans is 9 months or the gestation period for humans is 9 months, it means the same thing. Exactly the same. Okay. Now write down parturition. The process of delivery of the fetus, or we can call it expulsion, like we are expelling it out of the system. The process of the delivery of the fetus or expulsion from the uterus or the womb, from the womb through the birth canal, from the womb through the birth canal, due to vigorous contractions, of the uterine wall, due to vigorous, and which is the layer which contracts in uterus? Endometrium, myometrium, perimetrium, or all? 4 options, MCQ.
Endometrium.
Myometrium. Endometrium is the layer in which it is embedded. But myo means, what does the word myo means? The middle layer. Muscles, yes. So what will contract? Muscles. Can blood vessels contract and relax? Like, yeah, they can do, but like within themselves. But for the contraction of the whole structure, the whole organ, the muscular layer needs to contract and relax. So it is majorly the myometrium. Perimetrium is the outermost covering. So write down vigorous contractions of the uterine layer is known as parturition. Okay. Now the question is, how does the uterus know that now I have to start contracting? Because if this happens early, like I told you, if some chemical can induce premature contractions of the uterus. For example, you asked me, right, Mamuna, why are females advised not to eat certain things during pregnancy, right? Because they can cause miscarriage. They can cause disruption of pregnancy. And how they can cause that? By inducing premature contractions in the uterus. Do you understand, Mamuna? It was your question, right? So where does this signal comes from for parturition? Write down. The signal for contractions of the uterus signal for contractions of the uterus comes from fully developed fetus. Okay. First thing is, it comes from fully developed fetus. Is it clear, everyone? And write down secondly, from placenta. Because placenta is embedded in the uterine wall, right? And if it sends signals, it's a more what do you say? It makes more sense. Yes, Minashi and Mamuna, is it clear?
Yes.
Yes. So this tells the uterus to contract, and when it contracts, and when it comes from this part, the signal, it is called fetal ejection, because it has to be ejected out. Reflex. So the question can come in boards or your school examination. What is a fetal ejection reflex? I have seen this question multiple times. So this reflex is originated because of signals from the developed fetus and the placenta. Once when fetal ejection reflex comes into picture, then this induces. So what is fetal ejection reflex? It is mild. They are mild contractions. Okay. Is it clear? And this induces release of, you must have read of this hormone, oxytocin. Remember oxytocin, people, class 11th, neural control and coordination. Oxytocin and vasopressin, they are the two hormones which are secreted from posterior pituitary, not from the anterior, from where other hormones come. So remember oxytocin? Yes or no? People?
Yes.
Yes. Now write down oxytocin. Oxytocin acts on the uterine muscles. Oxytocin acts on the uterine muscles and what will it do? This fetal ejection reflex, which was mild contractions, it will convert these contractions into vigorous, powerful contractions. Okay. And because of this vigorous, powerful contraction, the child is, not the child, I will use the word fetus. The fetus is ejected out. Okay. Expulsion of fetus. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So is the whole process clear to you of parturition? Yes.
Yes.
And then lactation is the process of formation of milk and secretion, production and secretion of milk towards the end of the pregnancy. That is the last thing that is called lactation. And I think it's simple, you know this. Lactation. So I'm giving you lactation as a homework. It's a small topic. You just have to study two things. What is lactation? It's the process of producing milk towards the end of the pregnancy when the baby is about to born. That milk is called colostrum, and colostrum contains all the nutrients along with antibodies that I have already told you, right? This I have already told you, correct? And your homework is to look up at the structure of mammary gland. It is there in your NCERT. It's very simple and you will understand it. If you have any doubt, bring it to me in the next class about mammary glands, okay? Is it clear, everyone? So certain things that we studied today, the regulatory part, in tomorrow's class, we will again bring them back and study it from the point of reproductive health. So what happens during the reproductive health when it goes wrong, and what measures or what protections should be taken